Good day and welcome. Welcome to something that is not merely a podcast. This is a reckoning, a quiet shiver in the bones of truth. You are listening to From the Office, and today's special is unlike anything before. A tale, no, a transmission from a different time. A memory not mine, yet somehow burned into the deepest strata of what I am. Roughly a year and a half ago, a remote viewing session took place. What emerged from it? It was more than data, more than fragments of intuition. It was a vision so precise, so disturbingly detailed, that it shook the foundation of my beliefs. It altered the way I look at the world, forever. And today I will walk you through it. Let me say this before we begin. I belong to no religion. I am not an atheist, but an agnostic, a seeker, a skeptic suspended in the gravity between knowing and not knowing. And if you, dear listener, are deeply devout or sensitive to challenges of sacred traditions, I urge you, with respect, to consider turning away now. For what I will share may disturb, may challenge. It may unmake, only to rebuild. We will speak of the Ark of the Covenant, of the Giza Plateau, of handbags, yes, handbags, that appear across ancient cultures, clutched in the stone-carved hands of gods. We will speak of divine light and radiation, of myths that were never myths, and of something far older than memory itself. This is the account. When I was a child, I found the Old Testament haunting, not in the way fairy tales haunt, but in the way old, blackened ruins haunt, quietly, stubbornly, waiting to be remembered. In every German household, there was a Bible. Mine was written in archaic script, fractal black letter, unreadable to my child's eyes. I copied it by hand, word by word, translating what I could not yet understand, driven by an ache to know. That ache never left. Years passed. Curiosity became method. I immersed myself in the discipline of UFO research, not for belief, but for pattern recognition. The deeper I delved, the firmer my conviction became that we are not alone, that we have never been alone, that an intelligence, at once non-human and profoundly involved, has moved like wind through the pages of our history. Now let us begin where all myths converge, with the Ark. Contrary to popular image, the Ark of the Covenant was not a single golden box with angels perched above. No, the vision was clear. There were multiple arks, perhaps 3 to 5, each a heavy wooden chest, about 1 meter to 1.30 meters in length, maybe half a meter wide and deep. Their true weight, however, came not from their size, but from what they held within. They were lined, not with gold, but with lead. Thin sheets of beaten lead, just millimeters thick, enveloped the inner walls of the boxes. Why lead? Because what lay within them was lethal, fragments, pieces of something not made by human hands, metal-like shards, shimmering like brushed aluminum, etched with symbols that glowed faintly, like an alphabet of the divine. The largest pieces were 0.5 meter or more, the smallest palm-sized. These were no mythic tablets of commandments. They were relics, technological, sacred, and deadly. They had been found buried deep in a mountain range east of the Nile Delta, found, not gifted. Those who touched them fell ill, fever, blistered skin, open sores that we today would call radiation burns. The closer one came, the quicker the body rebelled. And so, instinctively, perhaps through ancient memory or divine whisper, the discoverers lined the chests with lead. That lead became the barrier between life and annihilation. But not completely. 4 men carried each box. They staggered under the weight, not merely physical, existential. These boxes were moved to what we now call the Giza Plateau. There, beneath the earth, in a chamber known as the Tomb of Osiris, the arks were sealed away. Encased again, in granite coffins also lined with lead. Buried, forgotten. But memory has a pulse. From these truths, myths were born. The myth of Inanna, descending into the underworld, her jewelry stripped from her body, her flesh rotting on hooks. It wasn't allegory, it was autopsy. Those who entered the Osiris shaft with metal on their skin, the same metal that reacted violently to radiation, perished horribly. Their flesh blistered, their bones decayed. And so, word became myth, and myth became truth. This was no hell. This was no realm of judgment. It was a nuclear tomb, yet the story does not end in Egypt. From the shadows of Sumer and Babylon rises another thread, the Elohim. We are told they are gods, but what if they were something else? What if the Elohim were hybrids, the offspring of unions between humans and beings who looked human, but were not? The ancient texts hint at it, the long skulls, the pale skin, the piercing blue eyes. Across Mesopotamia, across Canaan, these features are repeated, in sculpture, in story, in secret. Each territory of the ancient world, it seems, was governed not by a priest, but by a descendant, a child of two worlds, a being that stood between the divine and the mortal. They ruled not with wisdom, but with possession, greed, rivalry. There were many, and there was war. The Elohim, once united, turned against each other, over land, over water, over power. And in the chaos, a faction emerged, strongest, most fertile, closest to the Nile. They could not afford to lose, and so they declared, there is only one God. Monotheism was not born of divine clarity. It was born of political necessity. The others, those Elohim who would not submit, were exiled, pushed to the corners of the world, into Asia, into the Americas, into memory, forgotten by the victors, but not lost. They left their marks, in temples, in carvings, in symbols. The handbag motif, carried by gods from Sumer to Central America to Göbekli Tepe, was no purse. It was a container, a vessel, perhaps a portable ark, perhaps a key, a symbol of heavenly power. And so here we are, the descendants of a story told by the victors, the spiritual children of a cover-up so ancient we call it sacred. But today, through the lens of remote viewing, through this strange and vivid echo, we glimpse the bones beneath the gold, the radioactive truth beneath the angel's wings. The gods were not gods, the commandments were not written, and the ark was not carried for glory, but out of fear. Perhaps the truth has always been there, waiting to be remembered, buried not beneath sand, but beneath silence. And that is where we leave it. Until next time, this is From the Office. May peace be with you.